week 6 is truly one of my favorite weeks because that's when we get to start digging into each other's tasks and workshopping those. But also, I think the asynchronous work that we just finished coming into this week was really exciting because you were all invited to write in response to your task and put yourself in your students' shoes and see what that felt like. And so what I'd like you to do is take a couple of minutes and give me a second. I'm going to pull up the syllabus. There we go. All right. The asynchronous work from last week gave you an opportunity to write in response to your task and try thinking about it from your student's point of view. And so I want to start by taking a few minutes to kind of reflect on that experience and post in the chat what it was like. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but before we have you actually start posting, I want to just walk through what's on our agenda for today. We're going to start by doing this reflection on our asynchronous work, and then we're going to move right into setting up for our task workshops because the bulk of our time today is going to be having those really rich discussions around your tasks. And so Kelly's going to take a minute and set us up for that workshopping. That's why we have the wonderful Miss Nicole Renner who's joining us today. And so Kelly, myself, and Nicole will all be facilitating a breakout room to look at some tasks, and I'll give her a chance to introduce herself here in just a second. And then we're going to look at some more resources that are in under the Learn tab, and then take a look to next week and talk about next steps. So that's kind of an overview of what is on our agenda, our syllabus for today. Before we start posting our thinking into the chat, give Nicole a chance to say hello.
Hey, everybody. My name is Nicole Renner. I'm the manager of core content development here at LDC. I manage our peer review system and do a lot of work with coaches, just as Kimba does. And I actually have a little bit of a history working with Kentucky. I used to be at SCALE, the Stanford Center for Assessment, Learning, and Equity, and we were involved in the Common Assignment Study project where Kentucky and Colorado were collaborating. I don't see her here right now, but Sherry McPherson and I actually worked together on that project. So I'm excited to be back in Kentucky, albeit virtually.
All right. And so we brought in some really smart people to help join us and guide our thinking each week. So really exciting. Go ahead and take a second and reflect about what that experience was like when you wrote in response to your task. What did you learn? Was there anything that surprised you or was really interesting about that? And so Kelly posted some questions for you to think about in the chat itself. So go ahead and post your takeaways in the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to call back in with my phone so my audio stays connected a little bit clearer.
I see Nicole there nodding. It's funny. I'll sometimes, for my daughter, it's her 13th birthday today, and so she's really excited about that. But I'll bring tasks to her and say, hey, honey, come try this with me. Let's talk through this text. What are you finding as your evidence? Or I have her just explain it rather than write it and how she might answer it. But that's been really eye-opening to see how it works for real students, right? I see some really good things thinking about pitfalls.
Learn from multiple responses.
I like this last one by Rick too. The importance of selecting the appropriate text for the appropriate standard and how they influence each other. Really great insights. Oh yeah, to focus your product. That's really important. I feel like there's so many pieces that come out when you have the opportunity to do this. Think about what skills students might need. Is it clear? Does it make sense? Can I do the thinking work that I want to in this text, with this text, or through this product? Interesting. Needing to have the additional text to have some synthesis. Nice. So I'm going to hand it over to Kelly, who's going to set us up for a workshop and get so we can get all of our documents open and be ready to dive in and look at each other's work. So, Kelly, the floor is all yours, and I'll be setting up the breakout rooms.
So today, most of our time is going to be spent in our breakout rooms, and that's really going to be the focus of our PLC this week. We're really looking at task workshopping and getting feedback from one another in smaller breakout groups to really have those discussions and to workshop through our task. And so within the smaller groups, we'll be able to engage with each other more easily and really work through analyzing each other's task for alignment to its purpose. We're going to be looking at clarity and also really focusing on alignment to the standards and seeing really what are our goals for our tasks and what are we truly trying to accomplish. And so you're going to get a prompt from Kimba in just a few minutes to join a breakout room. But before we do, there are going to be several documents that you need to have open, and I've just posted the links to those in the chat. So we're going to take just a few minutes while we're getting our breakout rooms together and have those documents open so that we can use those as we're workshopping through our tasks. And so you'll see the first one is the task workshop protocol. And so that's the protocol we're going to use today as we're working with one another in our breakout rooms to analyze the tasks that are being shared today. The next link is to the standards booklet. And so you can just open that up and have a quick, easy access to the standards. As we're looking at our focus clusters today, that tool will come in especially handy. We have our task template collection. I saw a couple of you were rethinking maybe which task template to use. And so that task template collection will be very valuable as we're looking at different possibilities of maybe reshaping or rethinking some of the tasks. Next, we have that pitfall checklist. And several of you mentioned pitfalls that you noticed in the chat and the discussion. And so we'll be looking at those today as well. Kind of seeing some of those are very common and trying to avoid them and help each other troubleshoot. And then finally, we'll have the curriculum alignment rubric. And so as you open that up, we'll just be looking at the characteristics and qualities of aligned tasks. And so just give you a few minutes to get all of those open, and then Kimba will have our breakout rooms ready.
Yeah, and I've gotten them all set up. What you'll see is, as a reminder, once I open up the breakout rooms, you'll get the little prompt that says, go ahead and click here to join the breakout room. Click that, and you'll be shifted over right away. I'm going to stay in for just a minute to make sure that everybody moves over okay. So for the folks who I'm in a breakout room with, you might see my phone number in there before my video goes in, and so we'll just make do. It should only be about a minute worth of transition time. Then after about 20 minutes or so, what you'll see is you'll get a message that says the breakout rooms are going to close in a minute, and it'll start counting down. You can go ahead and keep talking and make the most out of your time together and just come when it pulls you back, or if you feel like you've gotten to a nice point and are ready to join the main room again, you can click the button just to be sent back into the main room. All right? Any questions before we move into the breakout rooms? All right, once we're in, we'll share the link of the task you'll be looking at, and we'll be digging into those. So, oh, really excited. I'm glad I paused for a minute because Sherry just joined. I'm going to assign you to a breakout room really quickly, Sherry. Sorry for the on my feet thinking, getting everybody added because we're about to go into breakout rooms. Okay, all right, guys, here we go. I'm going to open all the rooms, and we'll see you in there. Hey, you guys. Good to see you all. Feel free to unmute. We'll be a small group. I may have to step out my video part for just a second to make sure that Sherry finds her way into her group. I didn't want to leave you guys waiting too long, but I want to go back and check with her in case she had some internet trouble and was kicked out of Zoom. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at Kevin's task today. And so what I'd like, yay! What I'd love to do is Kevin, if you want to pull up your task in a
Sure.
separate window, and I'm going to have you share your screen.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to go
Great.
ahead and put, hold on, I see the one unassigned participant. I think I can move Sherry into her room now. Sorry, I was getting a cool little message, and I'm trying to make sure Sherry makes her way to where she needs to be. All right, let me grab the link to your module.
How do I,
Kevin.
yeah, I'll need some help on sharing my screen, so.
Perfect. I will tell you how right now. Link to Kevin's module. And if you want, you can always pull it up from the collection, you guys, but here's a direct link to his module. Let's see, I'm gonna try. Still says Sherry hasn't joined. While you guys pull up Kevin's task, go ahead and take a minute and read through the task and the standards. I'm gonna leave the room for just a
Yeah, I have a couple of tasks that I have implemented. Remember, I switched from, so I would like to use the one, the culture of manifest destiny. If that's the one.
I think that's the one that I put. If it's not, let's fix that real quick. I'm gonna go back to the main room for a quick second to see if I can figure out what's going on with Sherry. And everybody else in the group, let Kevin know if that's the one that you opened, if it's the culture of manifest destiny, okay? Just a second. So, Kevin, to share your screen, if you go to the bottom of the Zoom window, there's a green box with an arrow coming out of it. If you click that, it'll give you the option to choose what view you want to share. So if you click on the window that your module's open in, and then click the bottom in the right-hand corner that says to share screen, you'll be able to share your screen, and we'll all be looking at your task with you.
Did it work?
Awesome. Sure did.
I can see that.
Success with technology. I love it. All right. So as we think about the workshop protocol, kind of the process we want to do to always make sure that we're grounding our thinking in the standards and those focus standards that are driving your thinking. We start by, I'm going to have you read your task, and then just read through your standards that you have selected for it. I know a couple of them are kind of long, and so you can shorten those. Don't even worry about that.
Certainly.
And then we're going to have you give us just a quick overview of what your goals are with this. What are you hoping to accomplish with students, or students to walk away understanding after this task? And then we're going to start talking about what do we see when it comes to reflection of the standards into the task, and just start our conversation from there. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So after reading secondary and primary sources about Lewis and Clark, the 49ers, Mormons, and Mountain Men, write an essay in which you describe the causes and effects of a specific cultural group. Support your discussion with evidence from the text. Include an illustration to help convey your message to your readers. And the standards that I chose, the reading standards, citing specific textual evidence to support analysis, primary and secondary sources. The writing standard, write an informative explanatory text, including narration of historical events, etc. The next standard here, students explain how conflict and competition occurred among individuals and groups in the United States prior to Reconstruction. I'm not sure if I need that as a focus standard. And then the next standard is quite lengthy. Let's see here. I wanted to see what drove me to using this one. The very first bullet, analyze how exploration and settlement of America caused diverse cultures to interact in various forms. Explain how governments expanded their territories and the impact this had on the United States prior to Reconstruction. And like you said, that is a very lengthy standard right here, this little guy. And when I share this with the students, this is actually something that how to share this specific standard with the students when we are coding.
Well, and I appreciate how you really honed in on the specific bullet point or portion of this really big, broad standard that you were really thinking about and targeting. So you want to tell us a little bit about your goals with this task with students?
Yes. I want the students to understand what caused our people, or our cultures, to migrate westward, and understand the effects that this had on the cultures.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to pose a question to the whole group, and thank you for guiding us through that a little bit, so we have some time to think about it and have some vision or direction around where you want to go with this. So my question to everyone is the starting question that we always have. What do you notice about the alignment between standards and the task? Where do you see the standards reflected? Where do you have questions? So let's start there. What do you guys notice?
Well, for the coding standard, you definitely has support your discussion with evidence from the text, and that's right from the standard. Specific textual evidence to support analysis of primary and secondary sources. So, I don't know, it says support your discussion. So analysis, I assume, is implied. Write a text where you describe the causes.
I think
Well,
that's really interesting. Oh, go ahead, Robin.
It's describe cause and effects. And this is support analysis. But I think if you're describing cause and effect, you are analyzing
I lost her audio.
why people move.
Is it me?
Yeah, there's a little bit of echo
Sorry.
in some of the audio. A little bit echoey, and so I think what you were saying is clear, unclear. So if we ask you to repeat.
Wow.
We lost Kevin's audio.
When you're doing cause and effect to explain what's, I think that's the standard of analysis is all I was thinking.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I lost for a moment. Could you say that again? I apologize.
What I think I said was that I think if you're, even though it says describe, it's describing the causes and effects. So I think that meets the standard one of support with analysis. Because cause and effect, you have to analyze that to decide why people move. So I think you got that.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt really quick. I think I know what's happening. Kevin, do you have like a separate audio going in the room?
Yes.
You might want, there might be the speakers from the computer itself that you might want to turn the volume down on because it's causing this reverberation. And I think that's what's making the audio sound so funny.
Is it better?
Robin, try talking again.
Okay, hi.
I hear you now. Actually, what happened is
so clear.
the battery died on it. I had it plugged in, but my power strip is broken, so we're good now.
Okay, now we have it clear. Took me a minute to pinpoint the cause of the feedback. So I'm really glad we figured that out, because now we can have a more natural conversation.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, don't even worry about it. One of the things I think is really interesting about what I heard you call out, Robin, is when you were noting the alignment between RH1, that site-specific textual evidence to support that analysis. When you're calling out where it was reflected in the template, that's actually the part of the template that doesn't get changed. And so that causes me to wonder, as far as, is RH1 one of those really strong supporting standards that underpins every task we write to some extent? That maybe it might be better as a support standard as opposed to a focus standard. And if you choose a different reading standard, it might give you more direction to really lift the thinking work in a meaningful or interesting way for students. What do you guys think of that idea?
Well, I was torn, because I know when I was reviewing this myself, I did see the analysis, and I was on the same page as Robin, that does that work? Is describing causes and effects a form of analysis? And I walked away with a yes, but as like you said, I think if we took that off the focus and left it as a secondary standard and then replace that with one that fits better, I agree.
Yeah, I had to think through that, but I do think that if you have a kid who describes the causes and effects of westward movement for a specific group, that's analysis, because each one of those groups has very different reasons for moving west. So I guess that's why I was thinking, okay, well, at first I thought, well, okay, maybe not. But then when I thought about what he's asking them to do, I thought, well, no, I think that is analysis. But I could be wrong. I just...
So something that's interesting is when, depending on the text that the students are reading to get those details about the causes and the effects, is it possible that if they're reading secondary source document, that maybe what they're doing is pulling out key ideas and details about what those reasons are and trying to put them together and synthesize? And in that case, it might be more of an R2, is actually the text interaction that students are engaged in to extract the content part. Could also be that if it was a secondary source document, that maybe it was more R6, which is really about point of view, and they're trying to understand the point of view of a certain person representing one of these groups to understand what their reasoning was or the effect this move had on them, which might be a different kind of interaction with the text to get at those understandings that would help them describe those causes and effects. Just an interesting thought of how to think about framing it from slightly different angles. I do have a question, because we keep honing in on those words cause and effect. Is there a reason why you chose to go with the describe template instead of the cause and effect template?
No, not specifically. Not specifically. This task has been revised. It's a task I tried last year, and I actually used it in a seminar approach where I was introducing other teachers to LDC, and we had just way too many texts involved. And actually, if you look at the text that I provided, let's see here, and this I have not edited this yet. You will see just how much there is involved here. I have 8 different groups who did go, So you can kind of take a look at this. And I was wondering also if it may be enough simply to use this as a mini task, 2 or 3 times with maybe just 2 or 3 of these groups, and then with a larger module, having the students compare the causes and effects of the different groups, or I would say yeah, exactly. So again, like I said, it's a work in progress for sure.
I think they,
What are other people thinking when you're hearing this discussion and ideas of fitting into a template, or maybe a different template?
That was my first thought, was the template. I would have probably selected a different template, one that was more cause and effect. When I look at the task, it kind of goes back to some of what others were saying in the group. It seems so big to me.
Mm-hmm.
So big, because I'm thinking about my 8th graders. If I presented my 8th graders with this task, first of all, I would have some students who would write so much that it would take weeks. There would be they would get so far out there. I have some that might have maybe a couple sentences for each group that you've listed here. Are you limiting just to the 49ers, the Mormons, the Mountain Men?
Well, that's a good question. We were, in order to try to avoid the pitfall of no room for multiple responses, I wanted them to have choice of, to choose one.
They're to choose only one?
Right. Of a specific cultural group.
Oh, you might want to make that wording a little clearer, because hearing.
yeah, I didn't even get that. I thought you were talking about all 4.
Yeah, me too. That's why I was worried about, how big that was. So if they're just to pick one, that changes everything.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I know I had that same feeling. It feels really big. How can we kind of narrow it? Another question I have, though, I want to go back to that content standard. When you look at the bullet point that you called out as being your key driver in this, and I keep thinking back to Robin's first thought about that analyze, right? Are they doing analysis? And we see that verb here again, but it's analyze how exploration and the settlement of America caused diverse cultures to interact in various forms.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder about what if the focus was about that interaction, right? Because I wonder if when they're talking about cause and effect, they're going to get at that and how the groups impacted one another, if they're just writing cause and effect about one group without that word somewhere in there. I saw you kind of nodding, Rick. What are you thinking?
Well, I was along with it. I think the bullet he has above it, which is the 082.3.1, which is the more specific assessment bullet, actually. So that's how we assess it, is more of what I think is the more important aspect of this whole assignment, this whole module, is that, you want the kids to investigate how these different cultural groups interacted and how that interaction then impacted the growth of the United States. And so I think, I don't think I think it's the wrong template task, for one thing. I agree with everyone there. But I also had some concerns about the sources, because I went over and looked at the sources. It's very heavily secondary sources and very few primary sources. They're just like a quote or something for each of the primary sources. So I had some concerns there. But yeah, I agree with Kimba that I don't think it's clear enough that we we want to look at interaction between the different cultures, and not just, and so I think the task would need to be, they would have to select more than one culture to talk about interactions with the other groups.
That could be really interesting. I got an idea, and tell me, Kevin, what do you think about this? What if we were to all take a possible template? Because I've heard a lot of possibilities of templates. Cause and effect, analysis, I heard comparison come up, and even looking at that standard, maybe even an explanatory, like explain, in which you explain something, could be really interesting. Do we want to like go to that document that has the template blank and try taking some of the language of a standard or something that we see happening here that might fit in another template, and then we'll all post it as a comment so you can see some different possible directions based on what people are seeing? Would that be helpful, do you think, at this point?
I think so.
Okay, let's do that, because at this point, we all have it open, and so what we can do is just try filling in a template. Usually what I do, hold on, I'm going to try filling in a piece really quick. You can see this. I do like in which you explain, and then I just finish filling out that content after it. I'm going to post that in the comments. You guys can see it. So watch, Kevin, since you're sharing your screen, will you hit that comment bubble to the right of the task?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Just where it has that little number 2 in it. There you go.
Yes.
And so I'll just do just that part that starts with the verb from the template, just to play around with how I might frame that content. And so I'll put the link to the template document so you can kind of look at a template as you type it in the chat if you don't have it open on your computer right now. Let's try that real quick and see what we can come up with. All right, so I'm going to try one that plays around with that interact link. There's no right or wrong. It's just about figuring out possible examples, right? Kevin, you might read this and say that's not very helpful. Think a little bit more. I had an idea for a cause and effect one. I'm going to try that one.
Now that makes a ton of sense, Kimba. And actually, I think it would definitely increase. It would definitely get me closer to where I want to be with the students.
The other one, this is one I was thinking about earlier when we were talking. Okay, here's my cause and effect one for good or for bad. And this was playing off of, I was thinking back to what Rick was saying as far as that conflict and competition, like those words, like those seem like really key important relationship words, as well as interact. It's all about relationships, understanding those. What I'm seeing with these standards. I'm thinking about westward expansion. Oh shucks, I get so caught up in these. I have to close the breakout rooms, but folks keep typing. And any thoughts as you guys are trying to put an example into a template? Any thoughts you have or ideas you want to share with Kevin? And before we go back to Kevin, I just really want to thank you for letting us dig into your task and your thought partners. It's really awesome, and I like your thinking here a lot, and powerful when we get to talk to each other this way.
Yes, I agree. Thank you all. You're very gentle.
I'm probably going to steal it.
It's yours. Yours to have.
Oh, I like that. Compare the contributions of two of the groups. Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, I like that.
I was like trying to talk
All
real
right,
fast at the very end
everybody.
there because the countdown was happening.
They weren't
Like,
kidding.
how much more can I get in these last 2 seconds? No.
Hold on.
Oh my gosh, everyone. It looks like we've all made it back in one piece. Yes, that's one success for sure. What I'd like to do is spend a few minutes just talking about what that experience was like. How was it to be in that breakout room and discussing a task, giving and receiving feedback? What are some of the ahas you're walking away with? Go ahead and just unmute. Let's keep the dialogue going.
I'm so glad that you chose my task. It's one that I've used before and some success. And I think that now, just with what I've gotten, and Rick, your feedback was definitely helped to drive this, especially looking at the standard of that you highlighted. So thank you.
I liked it. I really liked having different eyes helping me out. I like being looked at other people's tasks, and it helped me understand my task more when I was doing. So I really enjoyed the process, and I feel like I can get a stronger task now because of it. So I enjoyed it. So I thank everybody who gave their input.
I enjoyed it also for the same reasons. And then also just because it helped me look at things, because I've been looking at some of the same documents and stuff for a long time and kind of had a mindset about them, even though I didn't mean to, but I guess I kind of did. And through our conversations, I was able to see things just a little bit in a different way and how I could use those things differently to make my task and things better. I wish we could have the same, every time we write, it would be great if every single time you wanted to do a new module and you came up with your task, you had a little group that you could say, okay, everybody look at this and help.
So like thinking about that with like that learner and leader hat, that's something to think about as a leader. Can you create these environments where maybe as a team, or you have your go-to colleague thought partners, maybe it's a department team meeting, maybe it's a PLC, maybe it's just in groups like this where you create those informal relationships that you have these go-to people and say, hey, let's hop on a Zoom and work through this. But then also, how could these kinds of conversations support and really help build the quality of the tasks of the people that you support, right? I heard a lot from the task authors. So what was it like for some of the group participants? How did that feel talking about someone else's task and thinking through it?
Well, it made me kind of think about my own task a little bit. Some of the things that maybe I want to address before my turn comes next week. So, and also, how beneficial it is just to hear other perspectives on the same task to make you think about, well, maybe may want to go a different direction than I thought. Just hearing the conversation.
I also like to as going through this, is like making sure that when we're giving feedback that we're really staying close to the language of the standard in order to give accurate feedback. And so that's one of the things that I would like to, as I think about it and as I look at the standards that are outside of the areas that I normally worked with, and thinking about becoming really, really well-versed in what the language actually says so that I can be a better partner for everybody.
I couldn't tell for a moment there if Robin was moving towards unmuting or.
Now, I did think that it did make me think about my task as we were looking at his and rethink, oh, I need to go back and look at that again.
Jenny shared in the chat. I'd love for her to unmute and talk to us a little bit and tell us what she shared.
What did I share? I talk a lot sometimes.
Like you said that you really liked being looking at the same task focus,
yes,
and how it might help you with your task and product.
Oh yes, yes. I like.
I'm just calling you out, Jenny. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I like that everybody, you know, all three of us were looking at the exact same task, and that we were, you know, working together to, you know, make it better. I thought that I like that. I like how we all have one mindset to make it the best that we
can. I actually I'm going to share my screen really quick and show you something. Jamie made an interesting comment, and I heard this kind of reflected in everybody's discussion about really staying focused on the standards and using the standards as your driver when you're talking about things that you see working or wonderings that you have when it comes to the task, for two reasons. For one, because that's really the idea, right? Is that standards are driving the thinking of the task, and that we should see them reflected. And so really staying grounded in that alignment is really important. But also, there's the professional risk and the personal risk of sharing your work with others. And I think that becomes a much safer environment when it is focused on the standards, right? It's not so much, it's not about me, but it's about what do I see here and how do I help make it aligned to the language of what my intention is so other people can see it. And I think that really helps a lot in many ways in creating an environment that feels comfortable, where everybody can learn and kind of push their thinking and share. And so I actually want to take you to session 4, going back just a little bit to look at some content that was here, which is about selecting your focus standards and template. And I want to call attention to some stuff in the right-hand column. I'm going to scroll really fast because it's down at the bottom of every section. Every session, you get to the bottom and there's this coaching for impact piece. And it relates to your analytics report or things as a coach to really think about when it comes to this session, what am I looking for in the task design that the teacher is doing, in the work that's taking them through to really complete this assignment. And so I'm actually going to go to number 3, which is about what kind of things to look for to provide feedback about prior to the next session, right? And things that you can use in the comment bubbles. And so if you actually click on this link here, it opens these data tip chart. And what this does is it gives you things to look for in the participant's work, the teacher who you're supporting, whoever your participant is, and have some possible feedback frames and stems to start a response. To really think about what are those key things I'm looking for. For example, if they've just selected their focus standards and template, you're really looking to see that it's a focus standard cluster, right? That they align or they work together. There's some questions about using R1 and R10, which we really see as those, you know, bookends that hold them all together and occur in every task and maybe aren't the best drivers as a focus standard. And some of these questions. And so then after session 5, there's a new set of these feedback stems in that coaching for impact session. And sometimes these can provide a nice frame to really stay centered on standards driving the thinking, or to make sure to frame call out positive, as well as areas for revision or consideration. So if you haven't opened up this document yet, take a quick second and open it up and take a look at just a couple of them, and post your initial reactions in the chat. When you're looking at this, what do you think of? What's jumping out at you? Go ahead and post those.
And Kim, I was going to ask, can you show us how you got to that one more time?
Oh, you know it. Okay, so hold on. I'm going to scroll really fast. So I don't want to make you dizzy. But so in every session, well, starting especially in session 4, because that's when the real design work begins in IC1. You know how you have the main content here, and we have this right hand active facilitation, responsive coaching, kind of like this coach tip in the right hand side. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, because the coaching for impact doesn't come until you get way down to the bottom. And so that's why I'm sorry I scrolled so fast that made it easy to lose sight of where I was at. You get to the coaching for impact. The first one talks about should you see teachers working on it. So the summary card, and I'll show you what that is in analytics. Maybe next week I'll try to, since I'm kind of hinting at it now. And then where should you see them in their learning within design assignments, within the sessions, and then here comes the feedback part. And it's really the color change is so light right here to see where that link is, but this is a link to a document that I'll take you there.
Kimba, that link I just posted in the chat as well.
Perfect. And so once you click that link, it opens up this data tips chart document. So take a look and then just put your initial reaction in the chat, and we'll come back together here in a minute. I just like seeing everybody, so I'm gonna stop sharing. And I know we've been talking a lot, so if you feel like you'd rather just verbally articulate your reactions rather than start typing for the chat, by all means, just unmute and great to hear this more. And Rick, to your point, I think that's really helpful to think about, you know, guidance. How do you help guide them in a gentle way, right? Reflective questions, and then some real specific kind of targeted instruction. One of the things that we've realized is that, you know, in our I3 project in LA and New York, 80% of a coach's time is spent providing feedback, right? That's such a powerful, important move. And so really thinking about how to grow your feedback and develop it at key points can be really useful. Yeah, having a guide or a starting point, I totally agree. Ladies, is really helpful. Checklist for how to coach. What's my cycle? Where do I know where to check to make sure I'm doing the right things and the right moves at the right time? Awesome. All right, so I want to just go back to the syllabus again, just to frame our thinking for how we're going to enter into our work this week for the asynchronous part. This week you're going to continue exploring about the content, and although the content shifts into the design of your skills list, we're going to do that in Deep Dive 1, and that's going to be our focus. So just see what the whole course progression is, feel the whole instructional cycle, but keep your design work focused just on your task, because that's what we're going to be submitting for national peer review on February 23rd. And so that's just that first section. Let's see, I think, Evan, I still have yours open. Let's see. I think so. So that's this section here with the overview, what task, your standards, to your background for students. And remember, the background for students is student facing. So it's kind of your introduction to the work and the thinking for students, without, that kind of helps frame where they've been and maybe where they're going. And the overview up at the top is written for teachers. and it gives them a guide to what some of your decision points were in the design, like when in the year is it taught, is it part of a larger unit? If you're teaching novels, say in an ELA classroom, then maybe is this after the novel, or is it at a midway point within it, or do you see it as encompassing the whole thing? It's a way to help clarify some of those assumptions and things we just do naturally in our classroom, so other people understand when they pick up the module, so it makes sense. That's the part that we're trying to have complete before February 23rd when we submit. So go ahead and just explore. You don't have to do any of the action items. If you'd like to click them so you can feel that sense of completion, please do. And then continue to revise your task as needed based on the workshopping and your takeaways from this. One of the other things to think about is when it comes to your thinking partner, the one that you have checked for pitfalls and some of this other work, leave them some comments based on any new learning from the workshop. If there's some, especially if you guys were in different workshops and there's something that you discussed in yours that you thought was really interesting and relevant to their task, leave them a comment or two, just giving them some of your thinking. And then we'll give you a heads up as to some tasks that you might want to take a close look at for your breakout rooms and review those tasks so you're ready to dive into the workshopping next week. As a reminder, our list, oh, that's the wrong list. Here's the right list. Next week we have Rick, Daniel, Sherry, Kay, Cindy, Holly, and Jenny. And those are the ones we're going to be looking at in 3 breakout rooms again. We'll have Nicole joining us as well. And so we'll be able to keep diving into this. Finally, the last thing before we do our final word whip, and if you would like to start posting your kind of final reflection as we prepare to sign out, we are also creating a schedule of some one-on-one task workshopping times where you can meet one-on-one with myself, Kelly, Danielle from LDC, or Kate, who are the facilitators of the Friday group. We're working on putting in lots of different time and day options, and all you have to do is just put your name in. So if I'm going to meet with Danielle on Thursday, I'll put Kimba. We'll be checking these and we'll send you a calendar invite so we can meet via Zoom and do pretty much the same thing that we did in those workshops, only you'll have some one-on-one time to really dig in and ask any questions that you have about your task. So we will be giving you the link to this in a follow-up email. I'll post this in the chat now, or Kelly will, and you can sign up as soon as you're ready. So with that, if you have any questions, please feel free to stay on. I know we're about a minute over right now, and so I want to wrap up as quickly as I can. But I do want to end with our structure of giving that final word whip. So what is one word or phrase that is resonating with you from your thinking today? Go ahead and post that in the chat. Kelly, Nicole, and I will stay on for a few minutes if you have any kinds of questions. And thank you so much for another really great session. Hopefully now you see why task workshopping is like my favorite. Ooh, nice. I thought thoughtful collaboration even before I saw yours, Robin. Aligned, excellent. Poster isn't just a
poster. I was just reading that one.
Yeah. Excellent, you guys. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Sorry we went a couple minutes over. And if you have any questions, we'll stay on. Otherwise, happy designing and revising this week, and can't wait to see you next week.